And now it's time for us to discuss more of these headlines and simple keywords with Adam joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning, Lena. It's a bright and sunny Monday.
Good morning to you, too. Thanks for joining us. Did you have a good weekend?
I did. A bit quiet, but...
Quiet is good.
Quiet is good, yeah. Well rested and
Okay.
raring to go for the new week.
All right, ready to rock and roll. Let's get started. Our keyword news portion, as always, we're going to try to clarify some of these headlines for our listeners. And this is our first pick of the day.
Nuclear umbrella.
So President Yoon will visit the United States next month for a summit with President Joe Biden. What's on the agenda so far?
Right, so the main purpose of the visit is basically to enhance the bilateral alliance to deter North Korea's escalating threats. Now, reports suggest they could sign a joint declaration stating the US's strengthened extended deterrence. Now, the two leaders will also likely explore detailed ways to upgrade the alliance's deterrence capabilities against North Korea's nuclear ambitions as well. The US government also expects Yoon's visit to open a new chapter in the bilateral alliance and take the partnership to the next level. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre had said the US under Biden has taken the US ROK partnership to unprecedented heights in a way that benefits their economies and their people and strengthen deterrence in the Indo-Pacific region. Yoon and Biden are expected to concentrate their discussions on specific mechanisms to improve deterrence against North Korea's nuclear provocations. A South Korean government official said that Seoul seeks to increase its participation in the process of Washington's nuclear planning and exercise. The official adds that the U.S. provided nuclear umbrella should be enhanced practically to address South Korean people's concerns about its effectiveness. President Yoon had all the way back in January, I think it was, when he even hinted and suggested at the possibility of South Korea having its own nuclear weapons. But of course, the US said that wasn't a likely outcome, and the Korean public were concerned amid the North Korean threats and more speculation that it could conduct another nuclear test as well. So they're trying to find some middle ground, and we could see that in the summit that's coming up. Now, South Korea and the US will likely continue discussions to expand South Korea's participation in the US's process of providing the nuclear umbrella. The leaders are also anticipated to discuss tricky issues as well outside of North Korea, which includes all these chip subsidies, including the IRA and the CHIPS Act, which we'll be getting onto just a bit, as well as the regional cooperation to keep China in check as well, which is always difficult for South Korea because it's always stuck in the middle between the US and China, because it's a military alliance. It has a military alliance with the US as well as a trade alliance with China as well. So we'll have to see what comes out in those agenda items. President Yoon has kind of sided more towards the side of leaning towards more of the alliance with the US, especially amid this hardline stance against North Korea. But of course, he is still wary that China is an important trade partner for Korea as well. So we'll have to see what comments and agreements, if any, come out.
I mean, just because that's the recent side priority doesn't mean that President Yoon is not a business-friendly president, right? I mean, his policies also take into account why strategic partnership with China is something that we can't just, set aside forever. That's unrealistic. So that delicate balancing act will continue.
He's always been on the side of a military alliance with the US a bit more, but since the campaign as well, he's also sided or has touted the need to get the private sector back up and running and have more participation from them. And of course, that means that they need to keep China in their midst as well.
All right, so let's continue to talk about the economy. As you mentioned, the IRA is worth taking a look at this morning, and this is why. This is our second keyword of the day.
Brace for IRA.
So tax credit details of the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act are reportedly coming out this week. Korean firms will be keeping a close eye on that announcement. If there is something that they are dissatisfied with, which is highly likely, they will contest it.
That's right. So they'll be looking for basically how much their concerns over the IRA have been considered or reflected, or if at all. Now, the government is reportedly positive that those concerns have been addressed, citing contents of a white paper that was released late last year that contained what the government believed were measures that significantly reflected Korean firms' concerns. Whether the Korean firms agree, that's another matter. However, for the EV-related part of the guidelines, tax credits for EV buyers are provided only when the vehicle is finally assembled in the US, with its battery components and minerals satisfying certain requirements as stipulated in the Act. Now, that part, according to reports, is not likely to change. Now, the requirements include the use of minerals supplied from the US or a reliable trade partner. South Korea demanded a change in the final assembly requirements, as well as a 3-year exception for investments in progress. Now, Washington has signaled the possibility of adjusting its interpretation of the section on the scope of tax credit eligibility for commercial EVs. It has repeatedly conveyed to Seoul that it would be difficult, however, to ease the definition of assembled in North America. So that part of the act is something that's not likely to change in the upcoming planned or detailed announcement that's come out. There are kind of possibilities that maybe there might be some things that are favorable to Korean firms in terms of raw materials used. Right. So they could use raw materials from countries like China if these Korean firms make them into a valuable product. And so, of course, they might get some tax breaks or tax credits from that. But, of course, we won't know anything until the actual detailed plan or announcement comes out. And meanwhile, the U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai will visit Korea next Wednesday for talks on the IRA and CHIPS Act. But by then, of course, the detailed announcements will have already come out. So we'll have to see first and foremost what those details entail.
All right, let's talk about the demographic shift in the country once more. This is our third keyword of the day.
One child.
So recent stats show that more than 60% of babies born in Korea last year were firstborns, reaching a new record for the year. Tell us the details.
Yeah, so Korea's always had this long-standing issue of chronic low birth rates. So some might interpret this as saying, well, this means that more babies are being born, right? But we need to look at the data in a bit more detail. According to Statistics Korea, 156,000 babies born last year were firstborns. That's just under 63% of the 249,000 total newborns that year. Now, it was the highest percentage since 1981 when related data was first compiled. The previous record was just under 57% back in 2021. Now, the total number of newborns actually decreased by 4.4% in 2021. So the long-standing issue and the chronic low birth rate problem still stands. The number of firstborns increased by 5.5% during the same period. However, the number of second children being born decreased by 16.7% from 91,000 to 76,000. So since 2011, the proportion of firstborn children has been on the rise, while the ratio of second children has been declining since 2015. So basically, more parents in Korea are choosing to have only one child, as well as a delay in childbirth itself as well, of course, due largely to the increasing cost of childcare. If we look at the fertility rate as of 2021, the average age of Korean women giving birth to their first child was 32.6 years old. That's up 0.3 years from a year earlier. Korea's average monthly childcare expense as well stood at 976,000 won. That accounts for more than 19% of an average family's income as well. So especially in the times that we are in now with high inflation, everything getting expensive, high interest rates as well, the cost of rearing a child is becoming more expensive than before. So we could see these stats becoming even more gloomy for this year as well, we'll have to see.
All right, with that, we move on to our fourth keyword of the day.
Spending incentives.
I don't need an incentive. Just kidding. The government is expected to announce plans to give out accommodation coupons and launch a big sale event to boost consumption. Now, as you've said, things are more costly. If we had coupons to make it a little bit more affordable, things might change. What can we expect?
Yeah, I don't think many of us need incentives to spend more.
On things we love anyway.
If we had the luxury, we would be spending, of course. But the times that we're in is kind of restricting us from doing that. A lot of people are on the same boat as well. Now, a government source says various spending incentives will be announced by various ministries. Now, this comes as domestic consumption has been slumping amid an economic slump. Now, the government has also has measures in place to boost exports, but not so much when it comes to domestic consumption. It comes from time to time, but there hasn't been this kind of big plan to kind of get domestic consumption boosted. Now, the government is wary, though, that inflation is high and will likely announce measures that will not push up prices too much, so not interfering with that. Now, one area that the government is looking to boost is local travel and tourism. Now, many have been going overseas rather than traveling within Korea. So the government certainly wants to change that or make a balance. And now the upcoming plan could include accommodation coupons, so getting discounts of hotels and other lodging facilities, as well as other incentives. It may also include plans to get more foreigners visiting Korea as well, to make it a more enticing tourist destination. The government is also looking to hand out coupons and discounts to spend at local markets and stores as well, to get the local markets back up on track. And now it is also planning a big sale event in May as well that ties in with kind of local festivities in that month as well. It's known as the Family Month, so there's a lot of events happening there. So and they're trying to get some more sale events that coincides with these festivities to get more people out and about and spending. But of course, we'll have to see if it works.
All right, with that, we move on to our final keyword of the day.
JY Lee in China.
So Samsung Electronics Chairman Lee Jae-yong has visited China for the first time in 3 years to inspect a Samsung plant there. What's the latest?
Right. So this visit, of course, is drawing particular attention as it comes amid the U.S. government's intensifying efforts to curb the growth of China's chip industry. He visited the northeastern Chinese city of Tianjin on Friday, where Samsung Electromechanics plant is located. He checked how the business is performing, checking production lines and whatnot. And he also met with Samsung Group employees working in the region just prior to that trip to the plants. Now, the Tianjin factory is one of the major production bases that supply what's known as MLCCs used in IT devices and cars, along with the company's Busan factory. Now, an MLCC is basically a core component of electronic devices controlling the stable flow of currents within electric circuits. He has previously stressed the importance of accelerating MLCC product development for vehicles as a promising future business. So that's probably why he made that trip to that particular plant. Now, during his visit to the Chinese city, he also met with the city's Communist Party secretary there as well. Now, after completing his schedule in Tianjin, he moved to Beijing to attend the China Development Forum, which runs through today, actually. Now, it's an annual meeting where global leaders basically discuss the latest trends. Interestingly, the chiefs of rivals such as Apple and Qualcomm are also attending as well, Apple being a major smartphone rival, Qualcomm being a major chip rival. Now, he did not make official comments during the event, apparently taking a cautious stance amid the intensifying US-China rivalry as well. So it just goes to show that the visit itself is also evidence that Korean companies still find Chinese markets and China an important trading partner as well as an important market. So I think it highlights that fact with the Samsung chief's trip there.
Thank you very much, Adam, for today's coverage. Enjoy the warm day. We'll see you tomorrow.
You too. Stay safe. See you tomorrow.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.